Hi there. Welcome everyone to PartySlate's webinar on time tracking. I'm going to give everybody a minute to kind of filter in. This is one of our most registered for sessions, so I'm really, really excited. But I do want to give time for everybody to get here, wrap up whatever they're working on, and give us their full attention. Welcome. I'm Pamela Rothbard. I'm the Director of Editorial at PartySlate. If you are not familiar with PartySlate, I'll go ahead and give you the 2-second overview, which I'm sure Julie, who is our CEO and founder, will pop in to add to it. But we are a marketing platform that helps venues, vendors of all kinds, reach hosts of weddings, corporate events, galas, social events, birthdays, anniversaries, all kinds of events. That sets us apart. And we have an amazing network of vendors on our site. And we are glad that you're here to join us today.
So excited for this topic, Pamela.
Me too. Me too. I love this topic.
I love this topic. Courtney, thank you for bringing this idea to us.
I know, yes. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping notes. Go ahead and make sure that you have selected to everyone in the chat so that you are not just responding to host and panelists, because we want everyone to be able to see your messages, and post your name, your company name, where you're attending from, because we'd love to know the audience. All right. Hi, Allison. Thank you for kicking us off from sunny South Florida. Okay, amazing.
Right. We got Detroit.
All right, I love this.
Barbara, Charlotte.
Right.
Yay.
Look at this. Colorado, Vermont. Amazing. Okay, so as everyone filters in and posts where they're from in our chat, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to our amazing panelists. I'm going to start off with Courtney Drake. Courtney Drake is with an amazing planning firm out of Atlanta, and she actually came to us with this topic in which she is an expert and has a lot of insight. She's done a lot of practice on time tracking. It has revealed a lot of things to her about her business, and she's going to share those with us today. Courtney, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about why this topic holds meaning for you, what your experience is, and why you wanted to come talk to us.
Yeah, so I'm very passionate about time tracking. You don't give away money, so why are you giving away time? So I've been tracking my time for 4 years, and it's really become a foundational part of my business. It's changed the trajectory of my company for the better. And what I've learned, I really want to share with others, because it's a very simple addition to your daily process that can really shine some light into your business and how you're performing.
I love that.
Amazing. I love it. And Julie, I know you also are super passionate and have a long history of looking at how time is used. So Julie is PartySlate's CEO and co-founder. Tell us a little bit about your background with this.
Yeah, so before I started PartySlate, I ran 2 digital agencies, one called Razorfish and one before that, agency.com. So we worked with mainly Fortune 500 companies on their full digital presence, website, social, everything you can imagine, digital advertising. And in order to run a professional service firm, I don't care if you're a law firm or you're digital services or ad agency, you have to know how much time you're spending on each client, because typically you're billing either a retainer or time and materials. And in order to know how much money you're actually making on that client, so what your margin is you must understand not only the time, but what client people are working on, what section of the project was it, and then their billable rate, and then the gross margin, and utilization is a big number, is what is your billable utilization. So the entire of it dates me 25 years in digital agency world. The core tool to help you understand how you're running your business is, your time times how much you charge and your margin. And so I have I don't want to say love-hate, mainly a love relationship with understanding and having a very good look in the mirror on how profitable and how well you're running a business. It's a little different at PartySlate being a tech product company. It's not apples to apples, but I still believe that the event industry, which is largely professional services, undervalues that knowledge is power. And so when Courtney came to me, I kind of felt like lightning struck, like, yes, this is an important topic for people to understand how much time they spend, how they're charging, and how really that can drive efficiency in their business.
Yeah. And it can be scary.
It can be scary.
It's scary.
You're making $10 an hour. And I don't know.
Yeah. You don't want to know how much you're making.
It's too revealing sometimes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when you do find that out, maybe that would give you a little more strength and confidence to do a change order. I don't hear the industry talking about change orders. Like, oh, I went from 100 to 500 people. That should be a change order. It shouldn't be like, yeah, my little rate is going to support that. So I don't hear the industry, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't hear a lot of talk about, yes, you have a proposal, but in my world that I came from, change orders were often expected. They were documented. They don't have to be these formal contracts, but they were agreed upon in writing when you do a change order. So I will get off my soapbox here, but I think we can be better about how we charge and knowing that, wow, I need $2 an hour. If I really look at myself in the mirror, that's not right.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think that the 3 pain points and the reason we thought this would be such a good topic when Courtney came to us, you've already hit on it. Number 1 is pricing. What are we charging for our time? Does it make sense in the end based on all of the tasks that you have to do for a single event? What makes sense? And then also being able to justify that pricing. This is an industry where what people charge varies so greatly. It's also an industry with a lot of solopreneurs or entrepreneurs with small to mid-size companies, and every hour really counts. And so we want to make sure that we are really utilizing that, being productive and charging what we're worth. And then lastly, a real pain point that we've heard a lot about at PartySlate is the idea that after an event is over, that event is over for that, but now your job as a professional is to promote and share your work from that event to encourage new business and to build your portfolio. And that is a whole nother chunk of time that often doesn't get accounted for. And so at the end, Julie's going to share some time saving bits for that. Let's go ahead and get started. Julie, do you want to pull up our slides?
Yes. I'm sorry. Here's my screen. I don't want you to see my ugly desktop and
that was a lot of, I feel less
pictures
bad
of my
about
kids.
mine.
Yeah. And for those of you who've been on, we did over 60 webinars during the pandemic, and now Pamela is leading monthly webinars. We hope to soon, no pressure, Pamela, do like weekly webinars next year.
Oh, yeah, that's no pressure at all.
And a podcast too.
Let's not use group pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
Get me to do more.
But I think we just want to start with, Courtney, as our expert, what is time tracking? How can it help streamline your business? How do you get started? And for those of you that do have ideas and do use tools, I would love to hear from you guys in the chat. Pamela's going to be monitoring. And finally, I do want to give a little push for PartySlate 2.0. We are launching time-saving tools to make the daunting task of photo management, sharing to social, getting the perfect photo for your proposal easier so you can work on your real job, which is managing these incredibly complicated events. So maybe Courtney, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you hear in your perspective on time tracking.
Yeah, well, when I first asked my industry peers, do you track your time? Like, how much do you spend on a project? They're like, I'm scared to know. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that. But that really highlights you really need to dive into that further. Yeah. In time tracking, it's very simple. It is. I mean, it's just the basic recording of your time among your team for tasks and projects. It needs to be done daily. It is, a task. It is a new routine that you have to incorporate into your daily workflow. But I think as soon as you start, it's going to start providing some very valuable insights, and then you're going to be hooked and you're going to dive deeper into where your time goes. And so I love starting with, what you can relate to from across industries, whether you're a planner, a photographer, a baker, a DJ, whatever. We can all relate to, the planner gets the text at 9 o'clock at night from the mother of the bride. And hey, do you have a second to chat?
Yeah.
And it's like, sure. And then it's 2 hours later. Or, a client comes to a photographer and says, hey, can you just remove this stain from this dress? And it's like, yeah, for all of your photos. And you have to go through and edit out everything. And that takes a lot of time. And something that I love to use an example, and please keep in mind, I'm not a photographer, but whenever we try to sell additional coverage, like, their hourly rate is this, right? To add an hour of coverage. That hour of coverage represents more than just an hour of them being on site shooting. It represents us the prep that goes into that additional hour. Maybe it's an additional shot list. Maybe it's additional calls with the planner or client to talk about the timeline. Then you, of course, have the on-site planning. Then you have the post. You have how many photos and that come into addition to that additional hour of coverage, culling and editing. So that additional hour actually represents a lot more foundational hours. And if you really don't know what that represents, then how do you know how to price it appropriately, but also how to sell it? So there's a lot of ways that we can relate to these little one-off requests that the time just adds up. And then you can establish boundaries once you realize that you might have a leaky faucet here with mother of the bride who's texting you on a Sunday night. So I'm sure we can relate to that.
I can relate.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. And just so you know, I started time tracking during COVID, and it's because I felt burnout. I constantly had to keep up with postponements, cancellations, different executive orders. And if I would have tracked my time then, I would have been able to better, prepare for, expectations or set expectations for them going forward, and how to conserve my time and also conserve my money during the pandemic. But now we have the data, and now I can navigate another pandemic if needed.
Yes, you'll be ready for the next one.
We're ready, man. I'm prepped.
Yeah.
No next one.
If you think about industries that do a good job, and I know it's annoying, but if you think about the legal profession, you know how much their time is, you know what their hour is. And guess what? You don't easily have their mobile phone. And if you do, you will be charged. And again, I know it's a different industry, but why don't we respect ourselves enough to actually have the value of our time, where it's just willy-nilly, like, yeah, I talked to my client all night. And I get it. You want the relationships, you want the referrals, and you become friends. But at a certain point, you also have a life that you need to live. And so
Exactly.
I think it's important that we really have this conversation more often.
Yeah. Therapists charge by the hour. And that was what I feel like as a planner I am sometimes,
And social media
they charge me additional.
contractors, typically have a retainer an hour. So I think our profession is not as sophisticated as it should be on this. And again, some companies are very sophisticated. If you have a large scale design decor company, they are tracking. But I think our 1 to 10 person companies, or 1 to 15, which is the majority of the industry, could really improve their business. So let's talk a little bit about, how time tracking can help.
Yeah. So it can definitely improve your productivity. So it highlights where the leaky faucet is, right? How can you look at your process from start to finish and identify where you're spending too much time, and maybe where you can put in a template or automate something to help increase productivity. Operational efficiency, look at your staffing. Maybe one staff can, complete a task faster than the other while not compromising quality. Then maybe you might want to pivot roles slightly. Pricing strategy, to me, is the most important one. I feel like this was my biggest discovery in my time study. So pricing strategy, there are so many variables that go into a pricing strategy, and why isn't time one? You've got to figure out how much time you spend, and that needs to be incorporated into your pricing model. And then, of course, forecasting. So you know how many hours you have and you want to work the next year or in 5 years. And so set yourself up, establish expectations with your clients, and set your business up for success based on what you know, the time you spent in the past and the time you're going to spend in the future. So it does help with forecasting for your business as well. These are just the 4 areas, but I'll tell you, you can uncover a lot more. But
Yeah, I
these are
think
definitely.
you mentioned this before on, for forecasting, it is scary, adding that first employee or adding the second or third employee. But when you forecast and you have more confidence in your pricing, and also, again, I'm going to say again, confidence in scope change conversations, which everyone needs to be fluid with. It's easier to hire when you have that confidence that you have the work to support a hire.
Yeah, and you also know how much time you're getting back.
Yeah.
So you can pinpoint, okay, I spend 40 hours here while I'm hiring someone to take that over for me. And hopefully
Yes.
they might be able to work more efficiently than you.
Yeah.
But it definitely instills some confidence in that decision and go ahead and pull the trigger on hiring additional staff. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I have so many people say, like, when's the right time to hire that first
Yeah.
person? I really think it comes down to, do you feel confident in forecasting the amount of work that's coming? And as you get better and better at forecasting, you get more confident and I always tell people, you can also start contract to hire. It's not the same, but if you're not fully confident on a full-time hire, I know a lot of our industry is part-time, but if you really want to scale your business and the quality and everything is important, there's nothing that compares to a full-time hire versus contract help. So
yeah, exactly. So here are just a few questions that you can address in just tracking your time. Because another thing that you can blend with your time tracking data is your operational data. And that's really where it starts to highlight you're not making a lot, or maybe you are. And it's like, wow, this is great. Like, my margin is really great. And how can I improve on that? But at a base level, how many hours do you spend per client? And then you can identify, okay, who was like the outlier and who actually did I not spend that much time and what was the difference? And you can figure out maybe your approach was different, or maybe you established expectations on the front end that were slightly different. How many hours do you spend within each phase of your service offering? So this, of course, varies by trade. But I think it is important because sometimes we underestimate the time maybe that it takes to organize our equipment. What lenses are we using? Do we need to rent something? Or, prepping for the wedding weekend, the pack list could be a U-Haul worth of inventory. You need to add that time up. This is a big one. How much I make per hour per service offering. This is, you think and you know what you charge, but do you really know what you're making? This, you'll figure that out quickly.
give me an example for the service offering, what that means.
So service offering, in other words, it could be like a package. So for planners, you may have a full service offering, maybe an event management offering. For photography, maybe you have like a 12 hours plus an engagement session, plus. So just the different packages or service offerings that you could offer. Yeah.
And then later we're going to talk about phases within a bigger project. I think that's really interesting.
You can get real detailed into this, which personally I love, but you don't have to get into the details at the beginning. It can be daunting.
Yes.
So just, high level, you can read here, how many events you can take each year because you know how long, an average project takes. So you can estimate like how many weddings do I want to take next year? Well, I know a full service offering typically takes this many hours. How many can I actually take? And then how many do I want to take? And just seeing how you can incorporate efficiencies, possibly hire staff. And then is it just worth getting up? Make it worth it.
Yeah. And I find it interesting, most of the industry does more than one event type. Even if you're a wedding planner, you might be doing milestone events, you might be doing, some corporate, but also comparing the categories. And I think that some people will agree that having a mix not only is good for your emotional state, because, it is draining sometimes working with engaged couples that are very passionate, or mother-in-laws or whoever it is. But I also feel that looking at time spent on corporate, if that's part of your mix, could be higher margin business, even if it's not as glamorous. Sometimes they are. And then you also have to take into consideration lifetime value. So the corporation could be sending you 2 events a year versus a wedding that could be a one-off. So all
Yeah.
of the time tracking can help you have a more analytical view
Mhm.
of how you're running your business.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
I do know, I'm going to break in with a question real quick. I do know we're going to talk about getting your team on board with this, but
Yes.
either now or when appropriate, we do have a question about getting your existing clients on board with this. And I assume that means as you adjust your pricing structure to more accurately reflect the amount of work you're doing and you have clients that you work with regularly, how do you circle back and explain to them the difference in your pricing structure?
So there's 2 questions there, and one I'm going to cover about change management. And
Okay.
your team might be like, yes, I love time management. I haven't seen that in the past. Courtney, maybe you're a better enroller with your team. I think if you make it simple and you enroll them in the why, and then have them come along with, maybe they even help with tool selection. They're part of the process, so they're kind of baked into it. I think that's the way you enroll them. But I do think you need to really think through what this could do for your business. You're not about micromanaging. You're not about, oh, you didn't spend enough time this week. That's not what it's about. In fact, it could be the opposite. Like, hey, I know you're burnt out. I want to better understand what kind of hours you're putting in so that I can charge more and potentially pay you more. I mean, I know we're not about like, let's give it all back to the employees, but if someone is working 80 hours a week and they're on a flat salary, that could be an opportunity to give them a bonus or give them something for their extra hour. So I think enrollment is really hard. But as far as change management with existing clients, I don't think any of
Yeah.
us are suggesting like, I used to do everything for free and now I'm going to nickel and dime you with everything. I think it is important to share with your clients, your existing clients. Oh, we went over by 30 hours. Hey, I'm going to take that on, blah, blah, blah. Just what you have to tell them. So I think phase one is telling them about the additional scope. And then you need to figure out when is the right time to put a stake in the ground that you're going to start charging for additional services that were not scoped in the original proposal.
Mhm.
And that's really a case by case decision. But Courtney, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
I
I
know. I
mean,
wonder if you dealt with that, Courtney, when you went through your time tracking.
well, as far as my team, me personally, my girls are contract and are part of their pricing structure is commission. So I
Mm.
don't care how much time they spend on a client. But for me, as a business owner, I want my team to be happy. And so I track, okay, you spent this many hours and this is how much you made. This was your hourly rate. And sometimes we just have challenging clients. And I know they went well above and beyond. And I can see that it's not a feeling, it's a fact that I can point to of, you know what, you're right. Like you did not make enough on that wedding for how hard you worked. And then I can make up for it on the back end with a bonus. But I would just think, oh, well, yeah, that one was hard. But I actually have time that I can point to say, yeah, she actually was well
Yeah.
above average in this. And so I incentivize my girls to track their time. And I also am an open book. So I do explain the why
Yes.
behind this. And also we work together on how we can incorporate efficiencies within our process, but I also use the opportunity to coach them up on how they can work more effectively. Um, yeah, and then the second part of that question, I'm drawing a blank on. What was the second part?
Are you you both have like really addressed how you deal with it on the employee side. Have you
Mhm.
had any hard conversations with clients that you've worked with for a long time that are expecting a certain pricing
Yeah.
structure? And now that you know the reality and you've had to make adjustments, how do you go back and say, this is what this is now for your future event that you're coming to
Yeah.
me about?
Well, I going back is not necessarily my preferred method. I think at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to go through a discovery phase.
Yes.
It's not their fault you weren't aware of how much time you were
Right.
investing or, adequately scoping the amount of work. So really you have to figure out where you are currently, and then you can make changes going forward. But what you can
Mm-hmm.
do in real time is as you're tracking within these different phases of your process, you can start implementing it through your new clients. You
Yes.
know what the first phase looks like, and you can speak to, well, typically we spend this many hours on this, or this takes up a quarter or a third of our process. So it does give you some confidence in your sales process. And if a client inquires like, well, why is it this much? Or, how much time have you spent? Or if they even have a cancellation, right? And they're like, I want all of my money back. It's like, well, actually, we've done some work. Let me show you
Yes.
how much work we've
Yeah.
done thus far and in what areas we've done that work. So it is kind of like changing a tire on a moving car while you start to track your time. But over the years and as projects come to completion and you start onboarding new clients, you can start implementing those discoveries into your future clients.
Yeah, I had an early mentor in the professional services in my digital agency career say to me that at the beginning of the discovery phase, building large scale websites is actually very similar to a large scale event. It's discovery, design, production, QA, the whole thing. There's tech, there's creative, lots of different personalities when you build a large scale website. And he always said to really sell the value of the steps involved in each of the things you're delivering on. And so it's not just you're just sending a one page, it'll be $30,000. Instead, say, here's the 70 steps of doing this large scale event. And if they question on price, you say, hey, which steps do you think, I've been doing this for 20 years, but tell me which steps do you think I could take out of the process that we can get the scope or whatever. And it is hard for someone that doesn't do what you do to say like, well, I think you should cut these 3 steps in your discovery. Very hard for them to do that. So you're selling the value of the steps and your experience. And I think that makes it easier to do a change order. Or again, I don't know if you have something that you call it in the industry. What would you call it in your industry? A change order?
I mean, I personally go to change order because that's in
Okay,
my
because
past
that's what I
life.
call it in professional services. And
Yeah.
hey, our original scope, we went through all the steps, was for 100-person party and blah, blah, blah. Now you added a welcome dinner, a brunch, and now you're
Yeah.
having 300 people. So here's how my plan has changed, blah, blah, blah. And it is a little bit of a negotiation, but
Yeah.
because you did your discovery at the beginning and you're so clear, it's easier to do a change order for that. So
Yeah.
I
And it's a
know
change
this
of
is hard, but like we should feel confident on charging for additional scope.
Yep, exactly. It's a change of scope. And once you start tracking over time and you have like a baseline and an average that you can bump an existing client up against, it's going to give you more confidence in going to them and saying this does fall outside of scope because on average we spend X number of hours in this area and you've exceeded it by X times.
Yeah.
You know,
I have
yeah.
someone that has an interesting comment that I have to comment on because I agree with that you're the biggest waste of time. I want to make sure I got this right is the 30 or 40 emails kind of going back and forth and the phone calls.
Right.
And what I would say to that, and again, Courtney, I want to know your opinion is that would lead me to believe that the client management is not like you haven't set expectations or this client needs a weekly or every other day stand up. Like, and when I say a stand up, this is very common in the tech world. It's not an hour meeting. It's a 7-minute meeting where you jump on a call and you fast fire, go through everything, blah, blah, blah. And you get it all done. And you're like, hey, this is our stand up. It's 7 minutes. We're going to go through these topics. And each time they email you, like, let's save it for the stand up, save it for, you know what I mean? So it's easier said than done. But I can't stand, and Pamela knows this, when we use Slack, which, instant messaging, there's a back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Guys, we need a huddle. And a huddle is
Right. Just hop on a call.
if we're not in the office together, we're going to do a huddle. And I think that could help a lot. Again, after doing client management many years. So Courtney, I'd love to know your opinion.
Yeah, and this is definitely something I totally get. You can sit stuck in your email, especially as a planner, because that's what we work within. I mean, personally, it's aisle planner or email. And what I would encourage someone who is starting time tracking is this is what I do and I have found success with is you log in and you've got a mix of information. You can see you've got maybe 10 emails from Sarah, 3 emails from, Emily, and then you've got maybe a PartySlate webinar notification or, a networking event. Get the low-hanging fruit out of the way. Spend 30 minutes to an hour on all the low-hanging fruit. Then focus on, okay, I've got a lot of emails from Sarah. Start that time tracker with Sarah so it counts against that project and answer every single email from Sarah. Boom, done. Move to the next client. And so you can organize your inbox to focus on one client or project at a time, but you've already knocked out all that other stuff. And then by the end of it, you would have worked through all of your emails and you would have tracked them against their project or time. That's what I have found to be the
I
easiest
agree.
process.
Megan, my friend Megan, had a good suggestion, a separate topic on, the selling process, because the expectations you set at the beginning and defining those expectations and the why. And if they do want a lot of handholding, that is fine. You want the platinum package, you want the extra support, you blah, 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 but you have to set it up at the beginning. Otherwise, you're not setting expectations and they're going to expect like you should be available 24/7 at any time across any channel. And I might come over to your house uninvited and blah, 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 because I'm the most important client for you.
Oh,
And so
exactly.
it
Yes.
does start at the selling process. So anyway, let's go back to pricing discovery. I'm
Yes.
excited to hear.
We're having a lot of questions on the tools also. So
And we're going to get to tools right after.
Moving. We're going to get to all the
Yep.
tools. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is the biggest takeaway from my time study. And I think a lot of my peers will definitely appreciate this and find the same insights. So here's just a few examples of project level analytics that support my personal pricing structure. Our service offering consists of 4 phases. You'll see we have planning, design, production, and event management. Of course, each of our areas vary depending on trade. But you'll notice that client A had, they had a budget 2.5 times more than client B. Same service offering was sold, okay? Same type of flow. So please note the time spent, right? So 287 hours versus 145. So nearly twice the amount of time on client A with a larger budget than client B. So my time tracking exercise continues to prove that the level of investment can be tied directly to the time spent. So therefore, my pricing is a percentage, and it's kind of a hybrid, so flat fee plus percentage. And that's in efforts to right size my service offering based on the sliding scale of complexity, which inherently is tied to their investment level. This alone has helped me gain so much confidence in my pricing structure and my sales pitch. I know how much time I invest, and I know how much time and how much I want to make for the time that I invested. There's several variables that go into pricing that you also need to weigh, right? The years of experience, reputation, market, but time has to be a variable when working through your pricing structure. So an example, let's just say if a client doesn't want to use you for design services, and I know, or use me for design services, and I know how many hours on average I spend, I can just remove that from their service offering. So this isn't a discount. This is just a reduction of services and a reduction of time that I spend. So I'm still netting the same. I'm just reducing the amount of time that I spend. So just this alone has helped me. One, it so proves that our planner friends, we've got to go to percentage, flat rate. One size does not fit all when you have different investment levels. And this just anchored it for me when I did my time study.
How have people received your pricing strategy change from flat to flat plus percentage?
It was just an education piece.
Yeah.
I had to explain because, $1 million plus weddings have multiple transportation companies, in some cases, multiple photography teams. The timeline is, 50 pages versus 20, and it just takes more time. The production value time, it just takes more time. And that needs to be reflected in the pricing. And so I give specific examples, and it's just educating my client. And as soon as I get it. Yeah. But you have to know your business, right? To sell it. And you can't just throw this stuff out. They're going to be able to read if you don't know your business.
Yes.
So this is that tool that you need.
I agree, completely agree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of questions before we jump into the how you get started. Should we move on, or do you want to take another question?
I think a lot of our questions are about tools. We will get to that.
Okay,
And
we're gonna
then,
get to that. Okay.
yeah, I think maybe some of these we can save till the end.
Okay,
We
great.
will get to all of them, don't worry.
Okay. So, yeah, Courtney, I would love to hear your thoughts on your journey on how to get started for these companies that are not doing it now or want to do it in a better way.
Yeah. So there are a lot of free options available right now. So you can start immediately for free. Personally, I use Toggle. I find that that's best and user friendly. My husband uses Harvest. Space Dial is the third one. Um, you could start as simple as just start tracking by a client or start tracking on a project level. Just click start and go and just start getting in the rhythm.
Mhm.
Now, from tracking for the last 4 years, I've discovered that, I wish I would have tracked to this level or to this detail.
Yeah.
And so I would recommend creating just a basic business framework that just kind of outlines how your business or your process flows. So you can not only track by a project level, but phases within that project. And all of this, again, it's free. So you can pull reports,
Yeah.
you can see where your time is spent weekly, you can even set up goals.
Mhm.
So once you select your tool, you start tracking your time, you immediately can start evaluating week on week, like, crap, I don't know that I got a lot done this week.
Yeah.
And you can actually look back and say, I did. I just worked on a lot of different projects and maybe I only moved it, 1 yard versus moving one project to the finish line, but I did get a lot done and you just had to work through the weeds. But you can go back and see where you spent your time, or you may actually identify you didn't work that much that week. And that's why you don't, feel like you, you don't feel that.
Everyone
And
needs a little
Courtney, with
break from time to time. That's okay. Yeah.
that's right. With these tools, you literally just start your time, you begin a task, you assign what that task is. So if that task is email
Yes.
to on a specific project, all of the emails and communication on that project, then you stop and you restart it when you start another
Yeah.
task. Is that
And
right?
that's why the framework I say is important, because you can go ahead and start labeling certain tasks. So it's a quick click and go versus having to manually enter everything every time. So I would recommend taking a beat and like trying to get everything organized and setting it up and then tracking within it, because it's going to be more efficient. But if you just want to get in the groove and feel it out, then just put it in the description line.
Yeah.
I'm working on Sarah. And then you just keep tracking it.
Yeah.
But this is
But
just
the emails, as an example, like if it's emails tied to the planning phase, then you track, 2 hours of emails tied to planning, correct? Or is it actually the task you're doing? I know you can go very, very low down.
Yeah, it's whatever you want it to be. I personally just organize it into planning and I don't track the emails, because within that email, I'm doing, venue selection or vendor procurement or maybe a design presentation. So the email represents something that I do tied to a particular phase, but it's yours. Like, you can track the emails if you want. It's whatever makes sense to you. Just ask yourself, with the information that you gather, what can drive that, with the data that is collected? What decisions can be made with that data?
Exactly. And then the 1.0 version, like let's say this is intimidating. I want to just start very basic. It
Mhm.
could just be client name and just everything.
Exactly.
That is very powerful to know how much time you're spending on, client A versus client B. And you want to know if it's a wedding or if it's a gala or the type. That in itself is powerful. I think what's next level powerful is what type of things, because the planning phase, and I have this a lot with large scale website design and development, is like, well, I don't want to pay for discovery. You guys figure out. I'm like, that's like saying you don't want to pay an architect to create your plan, and everyone's just going to figure it out and do it on your dime. So the education process that the planning, or you called it discovery, which I really like, is really important to know. There's a lot of stuff done in planning and discovery that sets in motion the entire event, or in my case, the entire technical implementation of a large scale website.
Yeah, and I think once you start getting the insights from just that basic tracking, you're going to want to know, like, wow, I spent a lot of time in this area. What was I doing? Like,
Yeah.
what? There's a lot of things that fall under design, let's say. Well, how much of it was revisions versus the actual presentation? We'll break that out.
Hmm.
So this again is a more detailed view. And guys, mine is like
Yeah.
even by like three
You
times
get
as
as
much. But
geeky as you want. You don't have to
yeah,
be
I
this
mean,
level. Yeah.
and this is just basic level, but to throw something else into this, which I think is going to tie into how PartySlate has helped my business, is this is just your services side. This isn't the on the business side. So
Yes.
tracking how much time you spend on social media
Marketing,
planning,
sales.
marketing,
Yeah.
reconciling that P&L in QuickBooks. Lord.
Yeah,
Um,
networking events, because people, when they go to a networking event, they may pay to go, but what about the 3 days or 4 days of going there? And you might need it to refresh, and there's other reasons you're doing
exactly.
it, but you should know how much you're spending total on these things.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And so this again, it can spread and go very, very deep in here. But you can also, one feature I wanted to mention is you can link in your calendar, and I believe it's Google Calendar and your iCalendar. So you can look at your time tracking as well as what you have on your calendar to do for the week. And then it's an easy click and drag or
Yes.
just click to start. And so you can hold yourself accountable, right? Or see maybe what you missed, and it makes it a little easier to track. But to go back to this, you're going to continue elaborating more and more and more on your framework, the more you see the value of tracking your time.
Mhm.
So mine obviously is very elaborate because I've been tracking it for 4 years. But within the first year, I still had some great insights, even at a base level of tracking.
Yes. Right. I love this. And someone asked earlier about, transitioning and getting your team on board. I think when you have contractors, there is no choice. You must do time entry, and that it is what it is. And like, you have to have that. But when you have full-time employees and they're working a lot of different things and they've got their hat and they're the last thing I want to do, I'm tired. I don't want to put in my time, blah, blah, blah. So you could get pushback like, hey, you're trying to micromanage me. This is time consuming. There is sometimes the fear of judgment. You think I'm not working hard or working on important things. So I always say, whenever you have a change, and change is so hard for people, myself included, is,
Hmm.
control your team on the why. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be enrolled day one, be like, yes, I love this, day two, but over time, getting them through the transition phase and then getting them enrolled in what this little graphic is like the new beginnings. This, just be open to the possibility that this could be actually a really good thing. You could earn more money. You could get promoted faster. There's a lot of things that are good about the why. And so you really have to think through the why. And if it's a contractor, it really isn't much of an enrollment. But if it's your team members are like, well, I'm working hard. That's not why we're doing this, to see if you're working hard. Are you putting in the hours? We're not in the office every day. It's to know how much should you be charging? Where are there inefficient processes? Where should you use ChatGPT to come up with a new standard operating procedure for something you do that's inefficient? And I do think, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this, social media and others, that's somewhere that you could get some efficiencies on. You got to do it. It's critical to use your content, but how can you do it faster and better?
Hmm. I
Yep.
think just to jump in with a few questions and things that people are asking about. So, Courtney, you alluded to the idea that there's obviously all of the project-based tasks, but then are you separately tracking that marketing, accounting, all of the things that you are doing just to run your business? Do you track them
Absolutely.
back to projects, or is that just that's a
That's
separate cost
non-project.
of doing business?
Yeah, that's not a project. Well, this is this is kind of a deeper conversation. So the current free time tracking tools that are available, you kind of have to duct tape the terminology with the on the business tracking, right? So you could classify, the client is maybe your business name, and then you have your projects as all your different areas of your business, and then you have maybe the task is even deeper. You kind of got to figure out, depending on the platform you're using to track your time, how best to categorize the services piece, but then on the business piece. But to
Mhm.
answer the question, yes, I track within I think it's like marketing falls under social media. And then I have social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And so I know exactly where I spend my
Wow.
time, and I can roll all of that up to say I spent this many hours in marketing this year. And then I can, go deeper and say I spent this much time on social media and it's worth outsourcing it, you know?
Yeah,
But then also
Right.
finance as well. So I do every single area of my business.
I love that. 'Cause
Amazing.
Mhm.
that is an often underlooked opportunity because yes, you're going to work, in the business and you're going to work on your clients, but you also have to work on the business.
Yep.
And it's just as important to
Yeah.
track what you're doing to improve your business and drive sales and drive marketing in order to get a real look at, could I be doing things better? Or could I take the 10 hours a month I'm doing on social or photo posting or whatever it is, outsource that for a relatively low cost because you should kind of put a value of your time, like an hourly time. Would I be better served selling, driving another event, or outsourcing finance and accounting, as an example?
Yeah, exactly. And you can figure out, you don't know what to spend maybe on an accountant, or you don't know what you should spend on advertising. Well, if you know how much time you've spent on doing it internally and you know how much you want to make, then do the math. And maybe that rate is actually much more discounted if you go to a professional who actually is probably better at it than you are. And then
Yes.
you can move
Right.
your time to your profit center versus your cost center.
Yes, I agree. And I think some people are like, oh, well, I have to save money because of this, that. And I'm like, well, yes, it's all relative, but what would you do with those additional 20 hours a month? What could you do to impact your revenue, impact your profit margin, impact, going and reaching out to old clients to reconnect with them. So I really think it's the foundation for so many process improvements and taking a hard look
Hmm.
at your business and really thinking about what you can do to improve. So I think this is great. I would love to share, I'm very geeky, a little bit about what PartySlate is doing to save time. And I'm kind of calling this indirectly PartySlate 2.0. We have tools now that really help people save time sharing their photo portfolio. We love your Instagram, we love your website, but at times a client will say, can you show me all your galas? Or, have you done this in your venue? And to have all your photos in one place is a time saver. And we've heard this over and over. Many people are getting, iPads for a venue tour and they'll have their profile page pushed up. The other thing is we are using artificial intelligence. We're heavy leaning into AI. We're a tech company and my co-founders wrote a paper on AI 20 years ago. So like this is something that he's very passionate about, to recognize all of your photos. And now you can search your own photos, not on PartySlate, but on your PartySlate Pro account. So if you're looking for that perfect wedding aisle, if you're looking for, it's Valentine's Day and you want a red event, now within seconds with the credits formatted, you can actually have that ready to go. And then the last thing is just something that I love because it's so time consuming. We have Instagram formatted credits and AI generated hashtags. So literally within seconds, you can find that photo. And I think it might be easier if I just show it. And I know there's about 100 new people on that don't have a PartySlate profile. So how people find PartySlate, let's say you're doing top event planners in, let's just say New York for fun. I always get nervous doing this, but right underneath sponsored, PartySlate is the first organic search result. So as you're looking through all these beautiful profile pages, you can quickly click in to one of their profile pages. And as I said before, having all your content in one place is really, really amazing. What we also have right now, let's say someone says, oh, have you ever done any milestone birthdays? She's got 25 milestone birthdays. And some of them she has posted. I didn't know she had so many here. Hold on. And some of them are credited. So the photographer posted this, and you can either show or hide this, but you have full control of your portfolio. And one thing that we did launch and will be in PartySlate Pro, I don't have the demo ready. I should have had that ready, but you can actually download the photo, copy the Instagram formatted credits, and then go right into, actually, I'm going to choose one with more credits. Hold on one second. Pamela, I should have prepared for which one I wanted to show. Okay, but that's okay. Here's a lot of credits. Let's say you wanted to share this, download, copy Instagram credits. Then I'm going to Instagram, and I do try to, my Instagram team is amazing. They don't let me post on Instagram, but for my own, I try to post twice a week. I'm going to take this photo that I just downloaded, go next, next. We don't ever put, and then you put all the credits that are formatted with all the handles. So if you knew how much time you were spending on credits and photo haggling and everything, this could be a way to save time. So let me go back. And then the last thing I'll show you is what we just launched is something called PartySlate Pro. And even if you have a free profile, you have access to this. And when you go into PartySlate Pro, now you can search your own photos. So let's say it's Valentine's Day and you want a pink photo, you can, all your pink photos are going to come up. Let's say you want to put a wedding aisle. Hopefully I spelled this right. All your wedding aisles are going to come up. And again, when you click into it, you can view the photo, you can download it directly to computer, put it in a proposal. And I believe, oh, it's live.
Yeah, can you show the handles and
Oh my
and
God,
hashtags?
I didn't know it was live. This is really exciting.
It went live. It went
Yeah.
live last night.
Okay, it went live last night. Let's find a photo where you can generate hashtags. So you click on this, and all of a sudden, outdoor wedding, beach wedding, all of these are coming up. And for whatever reason,
And you can add your own custom ones to it, but it gets you started on some popular hashtags related to the image that you're sharing.
exactly. So you can download the photo directly from PartySlate Pro. You can copy the credits, or copy all down here and put it right into Instagram. So this is kind of what the new kind of time saving part of PartySlate that we're really excited about. We believe it is really challenging to do what you guys do and be expected to be digital marketing experts. And so why not just have a simple, oh, look at how cute that is. I love getting lost. You can simply drag and drop your photos. You can see which ones are shared. And then also your profile builds while you sleep because you're going to get credited by other event partners. And then of course you can always hide your details as well. So Pamela, did I miss anything? These are the big time savers that we're excited about. And then also you can go see your inquiries and your analytics as well.
It's just so easy now to find any content. And some examples I love are like on Father's Day, you could search for the father-daughter dance at a wedding or a couple dance on Valentine's Day or any heart-shaped elements you might have at an event. And so it makes it really easy. We have someone requesting that you search disco ball.
Oh,
so David, this is for you. Disco balls are still giving. People still love the disco balls. So it's still going strong, which I'm very happy about. I love it. So it's just like a really quick way, and you don't have to look up the Instagram tags for each vendor. It's so time consuming. And so
disco vibes, and they look for height.
Disco vibes. Who knew?
Okay. I'm so glad we did that one. So
I do have a couple of questions. So if you want to wrap this, yeah.
Go ahead. I'll go back to the webinar or more questions on this.
More questions on the webinar.
Okay.
So just some wrap-up questions about time tracking. So circling back, we have a couple of questions about how do you handle it when there are scope changes? Lots of hands in the pot, people asking for different things as part of the same project and ongoing changes. So kind of an amalgam, but dealing with changes on the fly.
Courtney, I'll have you take this one because this is your expertise.
Yeah, well, I think one, if it's outside the scope or a new request, go ahead and start tracking it, because you may find that while it feels like it's an outside request, looking at the last year or 2 years of tracking, it may be a regular request that you need to incorporate into your scope. But also, you know what you need to make an hour. You know what you need to make an hour to cover the house, to cover your profit, and what gets you up in the morning, right? And so you have to know that number. And then when you track your time or making an estimate of the additional scope or time for the additional service outside the scope of work, then you at least have somewhere to start to your pricing. Again, it's a lot of discovery, but you can always go back to look at what you've charged previously or what maybe a previous task that might align with that new request looks like. And so you can see, how much time you spent. Again, it's a lot of discovery, but just start tracking it. You cannot be too
I think the
detailed.
tracking gives you more power. And at a minimum, let's say you're not going to charge for the scope change, you should tell them, hey, this is a scope change. I'm not going to build this in or whatever, but it's going to be about 20 hours of additional time. And the next time we add a scope, hopefully we can have a conversation about it, and I'll make sure to over communicate with you.
Yeah. And you can always charge by the hour. Sometimes if they don't want to, book us for the full offering, maybe they don't want to do design right now. That's fine. Well, I know what I charge them hourly now if they want to add it on. So if they want to have a design call or do a color story, we'll just charge you hourly.
Yeah.
And then you're getting what you deserve, payment wise.
I love that. And I know
that's perfect.
We don't have a lot of time, but maybe one more question.
No.
I just wanted to wrap up. We can send you this presentation, but I do think, three key steps is you have to have that framework first on how you're going to track and what level you're going to track. Start simple. You need to select a tool. We can send over a list of these tools that we have listed here. You should also do your own research and talk to your friendors and other people in the industry. And then the most important step is to just maybe once a month, take a little step back, maybe once a quarter, a bigger step back on, how you're running your business, your pricing, and your processes. That's the most important thing. Is not just to know what you're spending time in, but the time is a tool to run your business in a more effective way. And so we would love to send you a list of these time tracking tools that Courtney identified. We can send you a PDF of the presentation. We are also happy to schedule a Zoom on, how to create a profile page, how you can use our time sharing tool, time saving tools, I should say. They're really easy. I like to say, like, my mom could even use them, and she's 83. So we made them really, really easy. And then also we'll send Courtney's information over as well, because she's a great resource. And I know, Courtney, you also do consulting and other things. I think you're really an expert in this area, and I'm so glad you did take the time to dig in, because I think it can help everyone gain confidence, run a better business, and then have those really uncomfortable conversations with clients. It's a lot more comfortable when you know what you're doing versus like, I'm sensing this is going to be a lot of work. That's kind of hard. I'm just sensing, so this is going to help you get that confidence to, charge what you are deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually think that is a great way to end with 1 minute left. Thank you to everyone who attended. Again, we will follow up with all of the materials. Be sure, if you want more information, you can scan this PartySlate QR code here. And otherwise, keep a lookout for our next webinar. It's going to be a good one, and we hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
it. Thank you, Courtney. You were great. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, track your time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.